Hello and welcome to Literally Me, the Ryan Gosling Rewatch podcast. I am your host, Dean Beans, and as always, I'm joined by my favorite American person in all of America. He is
Whoa.
5'4". He wears an orange beanie everywhere, and his name is Fluffy Duffy. Hello, Harlan.
For the record, we are watching a Ryan. Actually, no, Ryan Gosling is Canadian.
Yeah, he is Canadian.
So I'll take that compliment. I'm not 5'4". Just putting that out there.
Honestly, it was like that was where my mouth was taking me. I know you're not 5'4", but that's what my brain told me to say, and
You
um.
got the numbers switched around. Wait, no.
You heard it here first, guys. I got the numbers switched round. He's 4'5". Um,
Yeah, good job, Dean.
anyway, this
Good
is
job.
this is episode 9 of our Ryan Gosling rewatch podcast, where we are endeavoring to watch every single Ryan Gosling film. This is his 9th film, and it's called Half Nelson. Harlan, why don't you tell us a little bit about Half Nelson?
We really started off too giggly with this little intro because this is not a fun movie.
No, that's what we're trying to
Um,
inject some fun into it, I think.
So the quick little synopsis of it, an inner city junior high school teacher, played by Ryan Gosling, with a drug habit, forms an unlikely friendship with one of his students after she discovers his secret. And then we go through these two's relationship as she struggles um, living in the inner city and the people around her that she has grown close to maybe aren't the best influences on her. And both her and Ryan Gosling's character struggle to figure out how to deal with themselves and their urges. Right? Is that it? Good
Yeah,
enough?
that's good stuff. That's good stuff. I think this is the best reviewed film of Ryan Gosling's career up to this point. It had a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes with critics and then 82% with audience, so pretty close to each other. Um, Having said that, though, this film made 4.9 million in the box office, which um, is one of his lowest performances. Actually, this made less than Stay, which we talked about last week. The only films it's made more money than is um, the United States of Leland and, of course, The Slaughter Rule and The Believer.
How much did it cost to make?
So it was one of his cheapest films so far at $700,000.
So, although it did not make a lot, it was a profitable
It,
film.
it, it turned quite a, I would say that's a pretty good profit.
So is
Yeah.
that like one of his cheapest films he's made?
So yeah, the cheapest film we have numbers for out of the films he's made up to this point is also The Slaughter Rule, which cost 500,000. We don't have a budget anywhere online that I could find for the United States of Leland, and I would imagine the United States of Leland would have been maybe around $500,000 again.
I disagree because
You,
you have stars at the time like Kevin
yeah, I
Spacey,
guess
Don Cheadle.
I was thinking just the film itself is, it doesn't look like anything special.
Yeah, but I mean, it also has like pretty good production.
Yeah, yeah. But
So,
yeah, it wouldn't be loads more.
um,
This film is directed by Ryan Fleck and was co-wrote with Ryan Fleck and Anna Boden. Do you know who those two people are from?
no.
Those two are the directing duo that did Captain Marvel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so these two. So yeah, so they co-wrote this film together, and then one of them directed it. For Captain Marvel, they were both the directors. And I saw his name when I was looked this film up, and I was like, I know this dude. And then I gave him a quick Googs, and I was like, oh, I know him from
Oh,
Captain.
interesting.
Yeah,
So, do you have any fun facts? Quick little
I don't.
activity
No,
do's?
no. I did have a look, but this film just isn't very fun.
This film is not very. They're just facts from this movie.
Yeah, it's just facts. Um, yeah.
But so now should we just
Oh,
your
sorry.
favorite
Yes. This film
films?
came out in 2006. Harlan, what is your favorite film from 2006 as we walk through year by year of pretty much the entire 21st century with the Gauze?
Well, 2006 is the release of my favorite movie of all time,
Hmm.
and so it's going to go to Little Miss Sunshine.
That's a solid choice. I was actually stuck between two films for this. Um, I had all the films up. Um, it was the two films I really liked from this year. Little Miss Sunshine, incredible film. Um, I also very much like Mission Impossible 3, great film. Um,
Interesting.
have you seen Mission Impossible 3?
I think so, like a while ago.
Yeah,
That's the blue one, right?
it's really good. And I really like Rocky Balboa. I really like Nacho Libre. Um,
Hmm.
I'm not a massive fan of The Prestige. Sorry, I'm just looking at a list here. But I think I will go Mission Impossible 3.
So interesting. Interesting. Okay, not even Night at the Museum. Wow.
I think that's the 2006 film I've watched most recently, other than, of course, Half Nelson.
All right, so let's get into our general thoughts
Yeah.
on this film.
Go on.
Going back to what you brought up earlier,
Yeah.
91%.
Yeah.
Oh, what's this?
Uh
Oh, interesting. I'm looking at the Rotten Tomatoes, right,
huh.
of Half Nelson, but when I click on the 91% and it pops up, it gives me 96%.
Huh.
Did it do that for you as well?
No.
Weird. Anyways,
I
91%.
can give you two fun facts about this film if you really want fun facts.
Dude, that's my whole thing. I love fun facts.
Um, so I'm sure we'll get to this, but did you know this was Ryan Gosling's first Oscar nomination was for this film,
Oh, no,
for
I did
Best
not.
Actor, which always surprises me because I feel like they tend to go for films people have watched, but not everyone has watched. And this film was shot in only 23 days, which is
Wow,
and which is short, and it finished 1 day ahead of schedule.
good for them.
And I was going to ask you why this film's called Half Nelson, but I have found the answer.
Can you give me the answer? Because I would not have been able to give it to you.
So it's like Half Nelson is like a wrestling hold where someone has like their arm wrapped around the opponent's neck and is like choking them out. And this movie is named after that wrestling hold. Why is it named after that wrestling hold? Read into that what you will.
Yeah. All right, so this movie made me so like this is a tough movie to swallow.
Yeah.
Um, but anyways, getting to what I was trying to say, 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. Do you agree with that score?
Yeah. I think I might go more with the audience score.
Yeah.
But that's still not an insult. That's still a very good film.
Um,
Where would you put yourself?
I think I'd find myself somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I would as well. Yeah, but I'm just saying slightly closer to that one side than the other.
I have just like last week, I have seen this movie before,
Hmm.
and so I was going on a rewatch. And when I first watched it, the entire movie I was waiting for the moment where Ryan Gosling's character would do something to benefit himself,
Yeah.
like as sort of a way to end the film on like a slightly good note,
Yeah.
but it just does not, and it sucks. Not like bad, but like it just like it's so hard to watch
Yeah, it doesn't help.
because it's not like the idea of the film is to give like an accurate portrayal of what, you know, life in the inner city can be like and what drug addiction can be like and take, this teacher who literally inspires children to become history teachers, which
Yeah.
is insane.
Hmm.
Um, kind of fall on his ass and like at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, the girl, it's kind of like her uncle, but kind of her cousin, kind of her friend, played by Anthony Mackie,
Yeah.
is a drug dealer.
Hmm.
and she ends up being kind of like the runner for these drugs.
Yeah.
And the entire movie is Ryan Gosling trying to stop this kid from taking that way of life, and the way it ends is Ryan Gosling not showing up to work and at this party where the girl delivers him drugs.
Hmm.
And kind of similar to La La Land,
Yeah.
they
Go
they
on.
exchange a look where it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that's okay, this is what it is. This is our lives now.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it a similar vein, but
I
definitely.
get where you're coming from. When you said that sentence, I had no idea what you were. I was like, did I miss the end of the film where we saw the version where everything went right?
No, 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 no. Um, but yeah, this and also, and
And
also,
also, and also,
a cat dies in this movie.
yeah.
That's my least favorite. That
I
hurts. I
thought
hated that.
nothing of it. I just kept on going, and I was like, "Phew, good thing it was a cat."
Oh, and then he like picks up. I don't know, this guy. I love this character of what's his name? Dan.
Hmm.
I when
Nelson,
he's good, I adore him. Which is
that's
what.
that's the strength of this film.
Yeah.
Yeah. I slightly take back my comments on cats. That's all I want to say. I was going to go into a bit more detail about my thoughts on cats. I don't particularly like cats. I did that. I changed from hating cats to disliking cats when I met a very special cat. But other than that,
You're talking about Ned, right?
I'm talking about Ned.
That's my boy.
If all cats were like Ned, I'd like cats.
That's my that's my boy.
Oh, for the podcast listeners, he just showed a picture of the cat to the screen. If you were wearing like your certain pajamas today, you could have just showed us.
That's true. I do have
Um,
Ned pajama
oh,
pants. Oh man,
right.
why didn't you communicate that with me?
I'm
Why
wearing,
didn't you?
I'm wearing a Barbie t-shirt, everyone. Okay. But we're not here to talk about Barbie. We're here to talk about Half Nelson. Um, yeah, I agree with what you said. I think maybe I'm a bit more. I don't know. I think maybe I had a better idea of what I was going into. I'm not sure what the reasoning behind it was, but I wasn't really waiting for that moment for him to redeem himself because I could just feel in my loins it wasn't coming. I was like, this is just going to be one of those films. Um, but yeah, once again, I think they do a very good job. I think Ryan Gosling is great in this. I think they do a really good job of just like it's quite a quiet film, as so much of it is done without dialogue and without yeah, like without any speaking. And I think it does quite a good job of just like the silence just makes you kind of sit there and be like, oh damn it, what's going on here?
Yeah. I do like I when I first saw this film, I did kind of understand that this wasn't where the movie was heading towards a
Yeah,
happy
yeah.
ending. But either way, as a viewer, you like I at least
Think
I
you-
like desperately want that for these characters that I like.
Yeah, yeah. I no, I do agree. Should we talk about the Goz?
Yeah, let's talk about the guys.
Do you know something I wanted to mention?
Hmm.
So we've seen him play a student a few times now. He was
Oh, yes, this is I want to talk about this too.
he was a student in Remember the Titans. He was a student in The Slaughter Rule, and he was a student in Murder by Numbers. So he's played a student three times. Murder by Numbers is the most recent of those films. That was released in 2002 when he was 21 years old. This film, 4 years later, he's 25. He's now a teacher. Do you like completely buy him as like this teacher? Um, yeah, let that.
Personally, I do.
Yeah,
I've run into I it's not uncommon to have like a 25-year-old teacher,
yes, yeah,
especially one that everybody likes, younger teachers.
yeah.
It's common for the younger teacher to be the cool teacher.
Hmm.
One thing that
I
was
think
really interesting in this movie
yeah, go on.
was I made a lot of comparisons to the slaughter rule.
Yes, yeah, I was going to talk about this as well. Yeah,
Um, because it kind of does what the slaughter rule failed to do.
Yeah,
Because this where the slaughter rule failed was there's this like very, very tight-knit relationship between a student and a coach,
yeah,
which is kind of what this movie is because Ryan Gosling's character is also the coach of the girls' basketball team,
yes, yeah.
which I don't think we've thrown I mentioned yet. Um, and in the slaughter rule, immediately that relationship is soiled because the coach makes a sexual advance on Ryan Gosling's character.
Hmm.
And then I, some people like that movie, but I know for me, and if I remember correctly for you, that just
Yeah.
kind of ruined it.
And like yeah, the issue was the film never really. I don't think the film did a very good job of addressing this or portraying this in like a meaningful way or in a tasteful way, and it was kind of brushed over by the end.
Yeah.
Um, and if I can just steal your point, what you're going to go on to say, I'm imagining
Go
is
for it.
um, the this film has an inappropriate relationship between a teacher and a student to a much less degree. Um, but they do a good job of making you feel sorry for Ryan Gosling and you pity him. But they also do a good job of like addressing how messed up what he's doing is in a way that the slaughter rule didn't manage with the coach there.
Yeah, I do feel like there's one scene that I was kind of confused about, but the relationship feels very platonic.
Yes, yeah, that
There's
is.
this there's this one scene where they're dancing.
Mm,
Do you remember what I'm talking about?
yeah, that one was a bit weird. I think there is some subtext there of something. Um, yeah,
But
I did think it was an interesting thing that this character, the student, um, I think the film would be exactly the same if she was a guy. And I thought it was
mhm.
interesting they made a choice for her to be a woman because she was like this kind of role and this kind of thing that you see would normally be attributed to like a young guy because like he's getting involved in a gang and he starts trafficking drugs and he plays basketball, you know. And I think usually you'd see that as a guy, and if it was a guy, I don't think there would be like I get the film would be very similar, like there'd be differences. So I think there is something there.
Yeah, that's true. But to be fair, that could be a reason why they're telling that story. Or also, this movie was co-written by a woman,
Yes,
and
yeah,
this movie was based off of their experiences growing up. Not true story, but just, you know,
tangential.
experiences of people around them and such. So that's also something, but you don't you're right. This move that was definitely something, and they could have cut that scene at the dance, but they didn't. Um, but regardless, you don't feel as if there's some sort of tension,
No,
sexual tension Ryan Gosling's feeling for this character.
now I've been thinking about it. I think that moment is supposed to imply that things could be moving in that direction, and it's supposed to like worry us. Uh,
Yeah,
but and I think that works because when I was watching that scene, I was like, oh no, I don't know if I want to keep watching this film if things are just going to keep getting worse and worse. And
they do, but in a different way.
yes, yeah, I mean they do not get worse to that degree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think if that was, I guess that's one of the intentions. It works.
But focusing on the Goss's performance again, I
Yeah.
think one thing what my I think my favorite scene of his is when he goes up to Anthony Mackie's character and
Mhm.
is like, you have to stop talking to her.
Yes.
And then he's like, what are you gonna do? Like, why are you doing this? And he essentially gets to, I don't know. This is just what I think I'm supposed to do. And I don't, it's something about it. It's just like, it's heartbreaking, but like you also see where he's coming from.
I
Cause,
think
and
there's
then
this classic Gosling thing. Like, I think we get this in Stay a bit, and I feel like I've seen it in another film, but the name of it isn't coming to mind. Like, he definitely plays this character. I think it's the believer. I'm thinking of. He plays a character which is just in a bad place, but is like so directionless in such a specific way that I find it really interesting to watch and really quite captivating because
Mm-hmm.
there's like such it's a weird thing to say, but like there's such little emotion and there's like he's so like dead behind the eyes that I think he does a really good job with this kind of thing where he's just like a directionless person. And like I think what Stay and Believer and this have in common is that he's someone on the brink of doing something really stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is really compelling.
Yeah. Um, but should we? So I think one thing we have to mention.
Yeah.
I think that some of the most recent films we have watched, this is the most uh, subdued, normalized haircut he has.
Yeah. They are kind of going for the messy, greasy look. It's kind of like he looks in the Notebook, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But
I like his
yes,
facial hair more in this one though.
yes, yeah. He's definitely gone the shabby, greasy look, and it works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But now let's move on to the co-stars of the film.
yeah. So the biggest star of this, other than the gods, is Anthony Mackie. Um, I do think it's funny that every film has someone where you're like, wow, this person's in this film, but like we haven't had. I mean, I guess like The Believer is the only one I can think of where we weren't like, wow, this person's in it. But every other film has had a pretty someone who is now a pretty big name in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And also like Anthony Mackie plays a big role in this movie, and he goes on to become an iconic actor. But we also have Sharika Epps, who plays the character of Dre,
yeah,
and she's very good in this movie.
she's very good. I didn't look it up, but I meant to. I want to know how old she was when she made this film, simply because she does such a good job. And I think
She
child
could
actor.
not have been that old because she's 34 now.
Okay, so this was 2006, so that's 18 years ago. So she was uh to 13? No, 17,
16.
16. Yeah, all right, yeah. So young, and she does a very
Yeah.
good job. I think
I would argue she's as much as a protagonist as Ryan Gosling's
yeah,
character.
I would agree with that. I think there's a lot of times like I think she has the more stuff going on. Like I bet if you look at the script, she has more lines than Ryan Gosling because a lot of
Mhm.
the Ryan Gosling stuff is her. Sorry, is him sitting there quietly. Yeah,
And if you cut out the Ryan Gosling parts and it was just the Sharika Epps storyline, that would be a fan. Like she does. There's when the story switches from Ryan Gosling to her. At no point am I like movies dragging.
yeah. Get back.
It's
Yeah, you never like get back to the Gos. I do
yeah.
agree.
It's
Sorry, this is off topic. The one thing I was going to say about Ryan Gosling's age, which I meant to say earlier, but I just completely forgot, is the one part where I was like, I don't know if I see this guy as the age he's supposed to be, was when they started talking about how he had a student that was in college.
mm,
Yeah, that was all.
yeah. I agree, but I think also I got a little bit distracted by them because that scene is also so hard to watch.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah. But anyways,
Sorry, I just discovered something on the Google page about this film that I didn't know and we haven't mentioned yet.
what is that?
This film is based on a short film called Gowanus Brooklyn that is also directed by Ryan Fleck and written by Ryan Fleck and Anna Boden. And it stars Sharika Epps as Dre.
Interesting.
And they've got someone called Matt Kerr playing Ryan Gosling's part.
That name sounds familiar.
Okay, he doesn't have a picture. No, he's in. No, he's not. He's in. He's in the half Nelson apparently. He must have a different role. But anyway, that's interesting. I didn't realize that they yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Sorry.
Um, but are there any other co-stars in this movie that you think
Um, it's such a small thing.
it is
There's
very small?
there's a teacher he works with, a man, who I really enjoyed this shtick of every time he went into the teacher's lounge. This guy would just read something out of the newspaper to him and just be quite a boring, annoying guy. And
Yeah.
I enjoyed that element. And then there was a better scene with him later on where he's a bit more um emotional. I like the stuff with I did like Ryan Gosling's mum, who was in this film for such a short amount of time.
Ryan Gosling's actual mom?
No, his character's mum.
Oh, no. Um, yeah. I liked I so little bit of backstory on me. Growing up, my mom was a teacher in Latin schools, so I kind of grew up surrounded by teachers and all that
Yeah,
stuff. So I think that's what makes this movie kind of hit so close to home is because, you know, I've kind of grew up in that not the inner city setting, but the
yeah,
teacher setting. So that one scene of when Ryan Gosling's character is like he's so close to getting fired, like he's just not doing anything he's supposed to do, and then the nerdy fact teacher comes up and instead of continuing his shtick, actually is like just wanting to help. I
yeah,
thought was really sweet, and I
yeah,
think there are moments in this film that make it feel less like a soap opera. Not to say feels like a soap opera, but it easily could feel that way. It
no,
makes it feel
I
a
get what
lot
you're
more down to earth. It feels like these are actual people.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say about co-stars. There's he has a love interest, if you can call her that. Um, she's pretty good in this. I don't think I have anything else to say.
So that brings us to the plot.
The plot. Oh joy, what fun. Um, like this might sound reductive, and I don't mean it in the way it's going to sound,
Okay.
but it's straightforward. You know,
Yeah.
there is there is no twist at the end like there was last week. There's no escalation of things. I think if you watch the first 10 minutes of the film, you can kind of guess the rest of it, and that's not an insult to the film. That's not me being like, oh, this film's bad because it's predictable, or I just think the film isn't about the plot.
No, it's definitely about the subject material and the performances.
Yes, yeah,
I think is what really makes this movie shine. But like yeah, there's no experimental aspect to this film. It is a traditional chronological narrative.
yeah,
Um, but it's just, you know, what whereas where I think Stay shined by its non-traditional storytelling and cinematography. Well, I think we'll get to that in a moment, but this movie does have interesting cinematography, but not in the same
yeah.
way Stay does.
Not in a like a overt way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
this I think this film does what it needs to do to make everything else work. I think by
mhm.
simplifying the plot and by simplifying like the structure, I think it really allows you to focus on what's going on with the everything else.
I do think the one note I think I can make on the plot,
Hmm.
um, this it does a very, very good job at in the first bit of the movie, it teaches you to adore this man.
Yeah,
It's literally within the first 5 minutes. You see how good he is with the students, how good he is with the girls' basketball team. You know, he has a cat, he loves his cat. There are like certain things like that to get you attached to this character. And then scene by scene, it pushes your loyalty to this character.
Yeah,
It's
kind of
like
unravels.
you're still gonna like him when he harasses a woman. Like you're still gonna like him when he does this, this, and this. Like and I think it does so in such like an incremental way where nothing every step it takes, it doesn't feel like it's uncharacteristic.
I
You know
think
what I
the
mean?
strength of this character and in turn the film is the fact that they have made him such a good teacher. Because I think
Mm-hmm.
if he doesn't have that one element of him being really engaging in a classroom and the kids clearly really liking him, I think you without like that one redeeming quality, I don't think there's anything about this character for you to be like, yeah, I like this guy.
I have a question.
Go on.
Listen, this is again, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the the English way of school. The
Mm-hmm.
do you have history teachers?
Yeah, we learn a bit. It's a
So
bit.
what did you learn? How, like, so do you have like a unit on being kicked out of America, like getting your butt whooped? Do you
See,
have
this
one? Do
this
you
is
have one about
the
that?
thing. Like I know Americans bring this thing up a lot. Like our colonization of America is such a tiny part of our history. And I'm not saying this in a way to be like,
Oh, I thought you were gonna be like, we set you guys up for such success.
no, my point is like if we had a whole block on every single country we colonized and then was later kicked out of, we wouldn't have any time to do anything else, like that would be our entire year. We did you'd focus on that middle period. I think we didn't really learn about. We learned a lot about the world wars and onwards, and then we learned a lot about 1066 to about Henry VIII.
Boring. Anyways, but regardless, do you remember having a history teacher where the guy would just yap
Yeah,
and you loved him?
on no, so not yeah, sort of. So at A level, which is kind of um, what you do when you're 17 and 18. You get to choose your own subjects and you do 3 or 4 subjects, and that's all you do. One of the ones I did was politics, and teaching politics was a history teacher, and he was exactly like that. And God, he was a great teacher.
I had one of those too. I think it was for like my US government class.
Yeah.
So pretty similar to
Yeah,
politics.
he did teach us about US politics a little bit.
Spoiler alert, it sucks. Um, but I think something about history teachers.
I
They
think
love to yap and just at the last couple minutes throw in what they're actually supposed to be teaching.
I think you get English teachers which are similar. I don't know if you ever had that experience, but I think there are English,
English?
yeah,
Don't know it.
which get very passionate about like certain books and stuff you're reading. But I think there's certain subjects which allow you a lot more passion, Like no
Yeah.
one there's no maths teacher that's like, man, I'm so passionate about maths and I can talk about it to people for ages and it be engaging. But history,
You know what though? I did my that you say that, but Mr. Dabrowski,
my
I love
I
them.
was such a maths nerd in school. My favorite maths teacher was called Mr. Walker.
That's your name.
Hey, you just doxed me.
LOL.
Um
112 North Street.
oh no.
That's your
That's how
address.
that's how streets work in the UK. Everyone knows that. Um,
Um,
that was a nice little. I think we needed that break from the this film we're talking about.
bro, it's this movie's so heavy. I don't. All right, let's go on a direction. Let's go on a direction.
Yeah. Um, go on. What did you want to say about cinematography earlier on?
So this movie, very cheap movie to make.
Yes.
And as we go, like this technically is like $200,000 more expensive than the Slaughter Rule, but considering that was 5, that was a while ago.
Yeah.
It like it's a basically the same amount of money, I
Yeah.
would
Yeah. Yeah.
argue. Um, and this movie likes to have a lot of close-up shots,
Hmm.
close up that aren't always in focus.
Yeah.
And I think at moments that's a flaw of the film. At other moments, it makes it feel not like a mistake, but raw and like you're actually
Yeah.
there instead of it being
I
well
see why they
produced.
do it in every time they do it, and sometimes I think it achieves what it's trying to do, and other times it does not.
Yeah. Other times your eyes just kind of hurt and you're like, can we please just see Dre's face?
Yeah.
But other times I think it really works almost as like, I mean, it is for the storytelling, but it I think adds a lot to what's
Yeah.
happening on
Yeah.
screen. Um, anything more with the direction? I think that's what I wanted to say. The
Yeah, I said, I think you've already said there's nothing experimental and there's nothing crazy, and that's not a bad thing at all. Yeah, I mean, hats off to the direction to getting good performances out of these people.
For sure. Um, and how they found uh what's her name? Sharika Epps. I don't know,
Yeah,
but she was awesome.
she's really good. She's really good.
So, all right, are you ready?
Yeah.
Wild card, wild card. So our wild card today, if you don't know, every movie we come across, we give it a wild card category of what the movie specializes in. And this week's we have the message. The message of the film, our thoughts on the message of Half Nelson.
Harlan,
Justine.
what would you say is the message of Half Nelson?
So I would say the message, it's a depressing one. This isn't one where it's like, never give up or never, always like say no to drugs. That's not what this movie is about. I would say
But if you are listening, say no to drugs.
say no to drugs. Anyways, uh, good job, Dane. Um, the message of this film, it's tricky. I don't know 100% the message of this film, but
Yeah, like I know what the film is about. This film is kind of about loneliness and it's about addiction, um, and among other things. But I don't know what this film is like specifically trying to say about these things. I don't. It might just be trying to show these things.
I feel as if like where some films like The Blind Side is very different to this movie,
Yeah,
but The Blind Side definitely is like we're going they first they take the white savior approach,
yeah,
which this movie does not. It like hints towards like this is what he's trying to do, but that's not the message of the film.
yeah.
I
I
think
think
it's
there is. Sorry, I think there definitely is like there is also a racial message here as well, because it's
yeah,
brought up a lot about number one. It's like there's this whole thing about they do this thing where every now and then they'll cut to a kid giving a presentation, and most of the presentations are about the civil rights movement and that sort of thing. And there's kind of bits where like the head teacher or whoever is like, hey, you need to teach these kids about the civil rights movement from this stuff that I'm giving you. And Ryan Gosling's like,
yeah,
I'm going to do that. And so there's definitely something going on.
but I think the message overall of this film is to show that you know it's not always happy endings
Yeah.
for this way of life. And I think if anything, this is me just assuming things, but this movie comes out of potentially somewhat of a place of anger
Yeah.
or uh because yeah I'll stick with anger because a lot of Hollywood films like to take the inner city and kids growing up in the inner city and show but this is what happens when a white man comes in, like similar
Yeah.
like that, like if they're get put on the right path or given the right teacher they can make a better life for themselves. And it's not always that way. It,
Yeah.
it sometimes it just, they don't have a choice. And I think that's what this movie tries to show.
Yeah. I think that is an astute observation.
And it does so very well. And it's heartbreaking. I have one question for you.
Sure.
So we know Ryan Gosling's character at the end of this movie, he loses his job. And he's at rock bottom.
Yeah.
The character of Dre,
Hmm.
is she done running
Uh,
out the drugs?
yes. I think I think I think so. I think the film gives us quite a depressing ending for Ryan Gosling's character, and I don't really see any way for Ryan Gosling's character to like grow and become better and blah blah blah. Like I think he is kind of stuck, and I like we say he's at rock bottom. I don't think he's massively getting his life together from this point. Um,
No.
but I think because of that, and I think because we've got such a sad ending with him, I think we do get a more optimistic one for her. And I think the whole point of there's a bit where Anthony Mackie comes and tries and picks her up from school, and
Hmm.
she says no and leaves. I think um, that is kind of a definitive thing of being like, don't worry, we haven't like completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It does leave it like somewhat open-ended.
Yeah, I
Like,
would say this film has something to do with how impressionable the youth are, but that ending is kind of like, oh, the kids are more adaptable and kids more resilient than adults because Ryan Gosling goes through all this stuff and he fails to pick himself back up, and then she goes through a lot, and then she manages to turn her life around.
yeah. Um, so I don't this is if you've been listening this far, you're probably feeling how heavy this movie is.
Yeah,
I will most likely, unless like somebody comes up to me and is like, "Hey, I'm watching Half Nelson tonight. Can you please watch this with me?" I'll be like, "Sure." But otherwise, two watches of this film is enough.
yeah.
It is enough.
What I was about to ask you is if someone was like, "Hey, Harlan, I know you're one of the world's leading Ryan Gosling experts.
Of course, I'd shake their hand.
Yeah, should I watch Half Nelson? What would you say?"
I would say yes.
You'd say just flat out yes, no caveat to that.
I would say yes, but make sure you don't have anything else to do for the rest of the day because it will be ruined.
Yeah, I would say if you don't mind a sad time, then you can watch it
Yeah.
because it's not even a spoiler to say this film is sad because like you'd say that about a film where like the guy kills himself at the end or whatever, but like this film doesn't have a big ending. I don't think you could do anything to spoil this film. So
Yeah.
I think you can get away with saying that for sure, for sure, for sure.
But I feel like after a while, I was like anxious and like depressed the rest of the day after watching this film.
Yeah,
Like it just sticks with you.
yeah. It's not fun.
But I think that wraps up our wild card.
Yeah.
So now we move on to our rating of this film.
So we do. This is what we do now, Harlan. What would you
Yes.
give this film out of 10 smackaroonies?
I initially said I fell somewhere in the middle between the audience and the critics rating.
Yeah.
However, after discussing it, I am going to land at a 9 out of 10.
A 9 out of 10. I personally, I'm still feeling more inclined closer to the audience, and I'm going to go an 8.
Okay.
Okay. Now we have a decision to make between the two of us to come to a consensus on what we give the Goz out of 10. I have a number that I'm quite confident with, um, and I think you might disagree.
I'm going to land at an 8.
I was going to say an 8.5, so I'm happy. Ooh,
No, we can go 8.5.
I was going to say 8.5. Just okay, here's the question. We can do this off what the numbers we've already got. We have given Ryan Gosling in The Believer an 8, and we have given Ryan Gosling in The Fall Guy an 8.5. Do you think this is closer to the Fall Guy or the Believer?
I think this is so. If we were to take away Fall Guy,
Yeah,
take that away out of the equation,
yeah.
this is my favorite Ryan Gosling performance so far.
Okay.
Um, I think he brings more to the table in terms of his character's depth and his performance and his charisma than he does in The Believer.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go as far to say as The Believer is one note by any means. By
Hmm.
any means.
By any means.
Um, but I do think this character in Half Nelson is something we really have like I haven't seen this before
Yeah.
in film. It's pretty singular. And I think he does a really good job at not only showing what it could what it looks and feels like to be an excellent school teacher, but
Hmm.
also to be a drug addict and
Yeah.
combining those two I think is done very well.
I would agree.
It's a 9 out of 10. You have this list, right?
Yeah.
Is that my highest ranking of a Ryan Gosling film?
A nine. Yes. So your highest before this was an 8.5 to the Fall Guy, and then you have given the Notebook and Remember the Titans an eight.
In a sense. Okay. Yeah, I agree. I do think that I like in a weird way, I prefer to watch The Fall Guy, but I do think this might be a I don't know. They're so different. They're
Yeah.
so different. I don't
Just
want to say it's a better
here's a
movie.
peek behind the curtain, though. Currently, as things stand, combining our Gosling ratings and our Dean and Harling ratings, there is a three-way tie for the best Ryan Gosling film so far,
All right.
and that's The Fall Guy, The Notebook, and Half Nelson.
Interesting. The Fall Guy and The Notebook. The Fall Guy's big because that's Ryan Gosling's most recent movie. The
Yeah.
Notebook's big because it's iconic. But Half Nelson
Mm.
is the first one of Ryan Gosling's lesser known. Did you know about this movie before?
I had heard of it. Yeah, I wouldn't have been
Okay.
able to tell you about it.
Um, I think this is the first one where it's like an I would say this is officially an underrated Ryan Gosling movie.
Yeah, I would say so far this wins the award for the most underrated Gosling movie. Yeah.
So that leaves one question.
Is this guy literally you?
Uh, hmm,
You're already
no.
about this. No. You telling me you've never done heroin in a girls' school bathroom?
Nope.
Okay. For that
Only the
reason, I would
boys.
say yes. Only joking. Ha ha ha. No. So at episode 9, let's review our literally me score so far. We have yes, no, 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 maybe, no, no.
I think like any of the one, I think it's going to be no. Hmm.
I think I don't. I mean, I don't know a lot about the films coming up. To be fair, the next three films are definitely no's. We've got Fracture, Lars and the Real Girl, and then Blue Valentine.
Wait, are you kidding me? Larson, there's gonna be a yes somewhere in there, I think.
Okay. Well, join us next week when we talk about A Fracture, a film starring one Anthony Hopkins and there's someone else I really
Sir Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins. There's someone else I really like in this film. Um,
Jake
oh,
Gyllenhaal?
Ryan Gosling.
Oh, I forgot about that guy.
Oh, Ryan Gosling. All right. Adios, fellas and women. You're allowed to listen to this podcast too.
What
Uh,
is wrong with you?
I said fellas, and
You're gonna say you Lars and the Real Girl. That's gonna be literally me from Dean right
I
there.
said fellas because I felt like that was appropriate, and now I feel like and then I felt like I was excluding. Hey, I've looked at the stats of this podcast. It's something like 85% men listen to this. Okay, the other 15%, we don't need to. Anyway, I'm digging a hole.
You can just end the podcast.
This is
Just
all
end.
being edited
Click
out.
click the
Um,
stop recording button right now.
okay, goodbye. Thank you. Love you lots.